Damp in older properties can be a serious problem, and it's something that if you're considering buying an older property, you've got to take it seriously. If you don't, you're going to end up with damp patches up your wall, potential mold growth, and your house will just be cold and wet. Hiya folks, and welcome back to our little 1930s semi-detached house renovation where we're trying to turn this unloved little house into something that's actually usable for a modern family. And really, I'm hoping this video is going to be a bit of a reality check for anyone considering doing a project like this, because at the moment the property is in a state where I can happily kind of hack into it with an SDS drill, knock walls down, fix problems that have got to be fixed. But by the time you start putting this back together, these sort of problems are very, very difficult to fix. And we've got one really serious problem in this room that we have got to deal with if we don't want a wall filled with black mold. So you may remember when we first bought this house, this was a downstairs bathroom, all cladded out with beautiful wood paneling, and that was hiding a multitude of sins. And we've ripped everything back to the bare brickwork to uncover what actually needs to be done to fix this room properly. Over here, where we've got some temporary boarding up at the minute, there was a single leaf wall that had been bricked up really, really badly, and it had just been kind of covered up with the wood paneling, but there was no continuity of the cavity or anything like that. There was a little bit of insulation in it, but the job was so badly done, I've literally had to take everything out, and once the weather improves, I'll be properly bricking that up again from the outside. There was a huge cold bridging point, which I'll not go into the detail of that in this video, but basically to avoid that, you need to cut a gap to recreate the cavity if you're going to be blocking up a wall like this, which is what they had done, but they just hadn't bothered doing that. So this would have always been a very cold wall down this side and a very cold wall down that side, where basically it's cold bridging straight to the outside. So I fixed that. There was no DPC at all on the outside. There was no DPC on the inside underneath the floor, so all the floor joists had gone rotten underneath where the toilet was. And then we've got one final problem that we need to deal with, and that is that this concrete slab here is bridging the damp-proof course. And this is a really important thing that needs to be fixed. If you don't fix it, you're going to get damp rising up the walls. It's kind of easy-ish to fix now, much harder to fix later on. So I'll try and explain first of all what's going on, because this is a root cause of so many damp problems in UK houses, especially in older houses, but I've seen it in newer houses as well where the damp-proof course has been bridged. But in a nutshell, in a UK property, you've got, obviously it's made of bricks, and these bricks will go quite far down into the ground and sit on the foundations. But everything below kind of ground level, you might as well assume that these bricks are soaking wet. And if you just continued building your brick wall all the way up, damp would just rise up the wall. It would just soak up through osmosis like a sponge, and the water would try to get to an area where it can basically evaporate and dry out in your living room or whatever. So in order to counteract that and stop that from happening, we put a thing called a damp-proof course in, DPC. Obviously it should be the full width of the brick. This isn't quite wide enough, but you get the general idea. And the damp-proof course goes right at the bottom of the wall, generally below floor level but above ground level, and it simply stops the water in its tracks. It can't get through the DPC, and therefore it doesn't come up your wall And then when you've got your plaster on your wall and things like that, it means you don't get like mold growth and all sorts of other issues that you can have if you've got damp basically just getting sucked up your wall. A lot of older houses will have a DPC made of like a bitumen material. We've probably got some somewhere. Newer properties have this kind of very heavy duty kind of plastic material. Some houses will have like a slate DPC. Some older UK houses have no DPC at all, and you're constantly battling damp, and then you have to consider your wall treatments because you need to allow for that water to basically evaporate. You need to kind of live with it. But anyway, I'm assuming you're not in one of those kind of outlier positions. Let's assume you're in a fairly normal kind of 1900s onward property where there probably is a DPC of some description. And honestly, bitumen DPCs, they can last for hundreds of years. They can break down eventually, but most properties that I've been in with bitumen DPCs have been absolutely fine, but the problem lies where the DPC gets bridged. Because if you imagine, there's your damp-proof course, your bricks above, that's all great, the water can't get past there, but if you then pour concrete in, and the concrete goes past your DPC, well, all that's happening is the water's getting sucked up through your concrete, past the damp-proof course level, into your upper section of brickwork, and then it'll just soak up the wall from there and evaporate out. And that is exactly the problem we have got here, because this was an old coal bunker. It's eventually been turned into part of the room, but they haven't put any thought into what happens with the DPC and damp that's coming up through this concrete slab. I will almost guarantee this has no form of DPC or damp-proof membrane under it at all. So this is happily acting as a bridge, bridging the damp-proof course, which is basically down at this level here. So really the only proper solution to this is to hack away the concrete at the edge of the room here, get the concrete below DPC level so that nothing can bridge across from here into the upper section of wall. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to hack away at the edge here, see what we're actually dealing with. I basically need to get below the DPC on this wall, have a look at where it is, and yeah, we'll take it from there. There we go, that wasn't actually too bad. This concrete's quite soft. I don't want to take the whole lot out because when you go right down to ground level, you're looking at about cubic metre of concrete there. That's quite a lot of stuff to get rid of. And it's not really harming anything, but you'll see what I do with the floor either in future videos or over on the member zone. But basically, we've got a nice gap going all the way around there now, and there is no way from any damp in this concrete slab to bridge across into the upper section of these walls. You can actually see the old damp-proof membrane here, and probably because they knew this was going to be a coal bunker, they just kind of ended it there. Either that or it's just disintegrated when I've taken the concrete out, but I didn't see any of it, so I think it's just ended there because, as I say, you don't really need a damp-proof course in a coal bunker. But interestingly, obviously this would have been kind of the internal wall to the property. That side is where the coal bunker is, and there's a bit of slate here. Now, whether or not there was slate going all the way along here at one point, I don't know because I didn't take this wall out. But there is a possibility that they did actually think this through and they put this slate in to stop the bridging of damp from this concrete into the upper sections of the wall. Because as I say, this would have been DPC level down here. We will never really know because I didn't take this wall out, but who knows? It could just be a random piece of slate. And by the way, this is some of the old DPC, the old bitumen DPC. It's about, what, 2.5 mil thick, 2.5, 3 millimeters thick. As I say, it's made of bitumen. Providing it's not disturbed, it's absolutely fine. But as you can see, it's very, very brittle. So as soon as you do kind of knock it or anything like that, it just basically disintegrates. But as I say, as long as it's not disturbed, it does the job absolutely fine. And just looking from the outside, I've removed all the concrete from on top of this course of bricks, which gives us a nice surface for installing the internal wall, and then we'll have the cavity. It's only a 50mm cavity, but it's better than out. And then we'll have our external matched imperial bricks all toothed in, and it should be absolutely great. It's about as good as you can make it for a 1930s property. Folks, I just want to briefly interject. I'm filming this on the 19th of December. And Christmas is rapidly approaching. I am nowhere near ready for it, but all I want to just say is a really massive thank you to everyone for putting in tape measure orders, and everyone for joining the member zone and everything else, and everyone for subscribing to the channel, and for your wonderful comments and all of your great suggestions and ideas that you post down in the comments on videos. Thank you so much for your support over 2024. I hope you have a fantastic festive period, whatever you're doing. Have a fantastic new year as well. I'm not sure when videos are going to be dropping over the next couple of weeks, but hopefully I'll get a bit of time to get a bit of editing done over the festive period, and there'll be plenty of stuff for you to watch. Have an awesome time. Thank you again. Back to the video. So I hope this has been a bit of a reality check to those who think that older properties can just be given a lick of paint and put on the market or rented out or whatever you want to do to them. It's just a fundamental fact that old properties in the UK have these sort of problems, and they have to be fixed at the point that you're doing this level of work to a property anyway. Kind of makes sense that we're doing this sort of work now. I don't particularly want to be coming back to this in 10, 20 years time, having to dig all this out and fix the problem then, because we've got massive damp issues. As I say, it's pretty much as good as it can get now. Another thing worth mentioning in all of this is that your DPC level should generally be at least 150mm above ground level. I can see straight off here, it's a little bit on the lower side. There's 150 there. It's not terrible, and honestly, I've seen worse on new build houses, to be honest. The idea of that is because any rain that falls here, obviously it can splash against the wall, and if it's splashing against the wall above the damp proof level, then that can potentially kind of soak its way up the wall. But I'm not too bothered about that here, because we do have a cavity, and what I'm tempted to do is install a little kind of cavity tray at the bottom here and insert a couple of weep vents in, just so that any water that does seep down the cavity has some way of getting out. Although I'm not 100% convinced about weep vents, I still have yet to see a drop of water ever coming out of one of these. But, you know, It's a little bit of ventilation for the cavity, I guess. So why am I even trying to do that? But yeah, might do a kind of little cavity tray at the bottom there. I would be intrigued as to what your thoughts on that would be if you're a bricklayer. At the end of the day, the rest of the house has no cavity tray and probably horrendous cold bridging at the bottom here from all the crap that's fallen down the cavity. But it is something to look out for if you've got a house, especially a house with solid walls. If your damp proof course is too low down, then you can get water from ground level starting to seep up the walls just when it starts raining and things like that. So folks, I hope you found that useful. If you want to see more about this entire renovation we're doing to this 1930s house, do hit subscribe. It would be lovely to have you on board as a subscriber. For now, folks, I have got so much more I need to get on with. Look after each other, be nice to one another, and we shall see you next time. Tatty bye.